Good day, everyone. Thank you, Antonella, for the wonderful introduction. Today, I'm going to discuss about how to understand and leverage the human factors to stop dangerous IoT or Internet of Things devices. Hello, my name is Dr. Sanchari, and I'm an assistant professor of computer science at the University of Denver. My work focuses on privacy, security, accessibility, and the human-computer interaction domain at large. Primarily, I work into hacking the human minds so as to create more usable, privacy-preserving, secure, and accessible technology for all so that we can enhance the experience of users, but in a secure way over the internet. Today, I will be discussing about a work which has been done along with my collaborators, Dr. Shaktidhar Gopavaram, who is a graduate from Indiana University, Bloomington, and currently works at Indeed.com, and my advisor, Dr. Jean Camp, who is a professor at Indiana University, Bloomington. When we talk about IoT devices or Internet of Things, these are traditionally non-standard computing devices that connect wirelessly to the internet and have the ability to transmit data, such as the many devices on the Internet of Things. IoT involves extending internet connectivity beyond standard devices such as desktops, laptops, smartphones, and tablets to any range of traditionally non-internet-enabled physical devices and everyday objects. Embedded with technology, these devices can communicate and interact over the internet. They can also be remotely monitored and controlled, and that can be concerning. Now, connected devices are part of an ecosystem in which every device talks to other related devices in an environment to automate home and industry tasks. They can communicate usable censored data to users, businesses, and other intended parties. The devices can be categorized into consumer, enterprise, as well as industrial. Now, consumer connected device includes smart TVs, smart speakers, toys, wearables, smart appliances. In a smart home, for example, devices are designed to sense and respond to a person's presence. When a person arrives home, their car communicates with the garage to open the door. Once inside, the thermostat is already adjusted to their preferred temperature, and the lighting is set to lower intensity and color as their smartwatch data indicates it has been a very stressful day. Other smart home devices include sprinkles that adjust the amount of water given to the lawn based on the weather forecast, and robotic vacuum cleaners that learn which areas of the home must be cleaned more often. This shows that the impact of IoT is increasing with every day. In fact, enterprise IoT developments by the end of 2020, we will see 5.5 billion connections, which will rise up to about 12 billion by 2024. Now, talking about industrial IoT, which is very closely related to the enterprise IoT, it is expected to reach nearly 950 billion by 2025. And this is not adjusted based on the COVID situation, where we went through a digital evolution, as I say. As I mentioned earlier, these devices are connected over the internet. So what can be the issues? Particularly from a privacy and security researcher perspective, the question comes, is there at all any privacy if this device knows what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, what am I? The question comes, is privacy dead? Along those lines, consumers are becoming increasingly aware of the privacy and security risks associated with IoT devices through media reports, opinions shared by friends, and by observing unexpected device behavior. Though we might say that privacy is dead, people are getting more concerned. It is not the same what it was 5 years back. People want answers to the question. However, consumer awareness alone is not sufficient to protect individual privacy. More fundamental behavior responses must also be addressed if privacy ought to be protected. Now, when we come to this question, the question comes, what is privacy worth? What is privacy at all? Now, there are several definitions about what privacy is. Some say it is the right to be let alone. There are other various technical definitions of privacy as well. But what is privacy worth? Well, that depends on if we are asking an individual to how much they are willing to pay to protect their privacy, or if we are asking them how much they are willing to accept for losing their privacy. Now, if people are strictly rational people, would value privacy the same in both the scenarios. However, past research has shown that people attribute a higher value to privacy in the willingness to accept condition where compared to willingness to pay condition. Researchers have previously studied the differences to privacy in willingness to pay and willingness to accept by explicitly asking participants to either pay for privacy or accept payment in exchange for giving up their privacy. In those studies, the participants in the willingness to accept condition often attributed a higher value for their privacy. Beyond privacy, these disparities have been found to be consistent across wide varieties of goods such as movie tickets, nuclear waste repositories, and many others. Along those lines, we wanted to understand what is the endowment effect here, which refers to an emotional bias that causes individuals to value an owned object higher, often irrationally, than its market value. The discrepancy between willingness to pay and willingness to accept can be explained, one, by the endowment effect and the status quo biases. I will discuss about these details in a few seconds here. Past research also suggests that students tend to have lower willingness to accept and willingness to pay ratio than the general public. So conducting the experiment with the general population would increase this ratio. Across decades of empirical studies, a general finding in this is that a gain may be moderately valuable, but a loss could be irreplaceable, and the difference between willingness to accept and willingness to pay would then be very large. So we wanted to understand what are these effects. So when we talk about the endowment effect, it states that people attribute a higher weight to items they possess when compared to the items they don't. And status quo bias consists of two components. One, loss aversions, and the second is omission bias. The theory states that people are inherently loss averse and so would attribute a significantly higher weight to the losses associated with a change in state when compared to gains, even if they are equivalent. People are likely to avoid, however, any regret caused by potential negative outcomes associated with the change in state. So they avoid taking any action that would cause a change in the state. This is called the omission bias. So to understand this, we have to understand how user research works. So we wanted to understand whether people actually value their privacy. And for that, we need indicators. So for our study, the choice of icons and framing was significantly given to the users, which clearly indicated the difference between less privacy and more privacy. This was again developed through prior research. In the study, from prior research, the authors compared stars, locks, eye signs to indicate what exactly conveys privacy using both positive and negative framing conditions. The result of the previous study evaluation on the efficacy of multiple framing mechanisms and icons was that positively framed risk information presented on a 5-point scale using the padlock icon was most effective. Therefore, here we use the padlock icon and a 5-point scale to communicate the aggregate privacy risk. This is the illustration which we have used. Now we wanted to understand what about the privacy ratings. Now, previous experiments in willingness to pay above compared similar products like web pages and applications. In the IoT domain, evaluation of the privacy and security provided the devices with the corresponding applications and services, it itself an active research area. For consistency between devices and based on prior work, we calculated the risk ratings based on the privacy policies associated with the devices and the corresponding manufacturer's application. The generation of aggregate privacy ratings based on the device's privacy policy is not the focus of our work, but we are going to extend that in the future work. However, since the validity of our work is influenced by the generation of consistent, believable ratings, we started the discussion with ratings, with padlock, and how we can inform the users. The proposed framework uses a hierarchy of network classifiers to identify high-level and fine-grained data collection and usage policy details. They demonstrate the efficacy of this framework with an application that accepts a link to a privacy policy and then generates appropriate disconnect icons based on the preset rules. So based on this previous research, we developed the IoT marketplace. As mentioned, the goal of the study was to emulate the willingness to pay and willingness to accept scenarios without explicitly asking the participants about it. In order to do so, we built on the principles of status quo bias to design two versions of the IoT marketplace. For the willingness to pay version of the marketplace, a participant's initial state would be high monetary savings and low privacy. Participants have the option to move to a state with higher privacy by clicking on the tabs on the left. However, this move would mean they would have to spend more money. We hypothesized that since people are loss averse, they would not want to spend more money for the products that offer better privacy. Here we communicated the aggregate risk settings using the padlock icon as displayed in the slide. Now, for the willingness to accept version of the marketplace, a participant's initial state would be high privacy and low monetary savings. Participants have the option to move to a state with lower privacy by clicking on the tabs to the left. However, this move would mean they would have to give up their privacy. Once again, people are loss averse, so they would not want to give up their privacy to save a few bucks. Additionally, participants would want to avoid the regret caused by loss in privacy. All devices with a higher privacy rating were priced higher than those with a lower privacy rating, so participants had to pay premium if they wanted to purchase devices with a higher privacy rating. In this study, we communicate the aggregate risk rating using the padlock icon as mentioned earlier. So as mentioned, we had several hypotheses. One of the most important one was more participants using the willingness to accept versions of the marketplace will purchase devices with a higher privacy rating when compared to the participants using the willingness to pay version. For this study, we recruited participants primarily in the Indiana area, which is a college town. So our data set mostly consisted of students. We recruited participants by stating that they would receive a free smart plug. This was done to attract people who were interested in owning a smart plug, as this would enable us to observe a more realistic purchase behavior. We also gave them a $25 Amazon gift card to purchase the smart plug. We were told they could keep the device and the amount left on the card as well. So to test our hypothesis, we conducted a study with 40 participants and 2 experimental groups, the willingness to pay, which will be called WTP group, and willingness to accept, which is the WTA group. Participants in the WTA group were presented with the WTA version of the marketplace as displayed earlier, and participants in the WTP groups were presented with the WTP version of the marketplace. Once a participant was assigned to a group, they were presented with a series of 3 devices. For the first 2 categories of the devices, security cameras and fitness trackers, they were asked to pick a product that were most likely to purchase. This was done to enable participants to familiarize themselves with the marketplace interface. For the third category of devices, smart plugs, participants were asked to pick and purchase a product of their choice. Participants were redirected to Amazon to purchase the device they selected. After purchasing the product, they were asked to return to the study to complete a series of survey questionnaire. As I mentioned earlier, we had 40 participants, 20 per group. 50 of our participants were men and 50 of our participants identified themselves as women. Our data set skewed younger, with 55% of our participants being in the 18 to 25-year age group and another 30% of the participants being in the 25 to 35 years age group. We did not find any significant difference between the demographics. For the gender, we had other non-binary options as well, but we did not find any participants who identified with that category. So talking about our results in terms of privacy rating, the bar chart shows that more participants in the willingness to accept group purchase products with the highest privacy rating when compared to the willingness to pay group. The bar chart also shows that more participants in the willingness to pay group purchase with the lowest privacy rating when compared to the willingness to accept group. The box plot shows a clear difference in the distribution of privacy rating between the two groups, with the WTA group having a higher median for privacy ratings. To see if the difference in privacy rating was statistically significant, we conducted a single-tailed Wilcoxon rank sum test. The results from the test show that the difference was in fact statistically significant. So we can definitely say our results were significant. Recall that participants had to pay a premium to purchase products with a higher privacy rating. Here, the box plot shows the distribution of premium paid by participants in two groups. The willingness to accept group had a higher median for premium when compared to the willingness to pay group. Once again, this difference was found to be statistically significant. For the other two device categories, we observed similar results except for the fact that these differences were more pronounced, that is, the effect size was larger. But these results are not part of our main paper because participants did not actually purchase the device. However, you can find that in the appendix. So what does it mean? More participants in the willingness to accept condition purchase devices from the highest privacy category when compared to willingness to pay group. These results are promising and indicate that people can either be nudged towards or away from making privacy-preserving choices through interface design. This has significant implication. For example, if Amazon were to categorize devices based on their privacy and show people devices in the highest privacy category by default, a lot more people would be willing to pay a premium to purchase a device with the highest privacy rating. Furthermore, this would give companies a monetary incentive to design and manufacture devices with higher privacy and security standards. We selected participants who self-identified as planning to purchase home IoT devices. If those with high levels of contextual privacy concerns are therefore self-excluding by their rejection of IoT privacy risk, then the difference between groups will represent only those in the current market. Previous research has focused on obtaining either subjects who value privacy or those with representative privacy preferences. We choose to recruit individuals who sought the devices in order to obtain more ecologically valid purchase decisions. The results show that beyond the communication of risk, the interface of the marketplace can have an impact on the purchase decisions people make. It also means that the marketplace like Amazon can incentivize companies to produce more privacy-preserving products by changing their interface. Right now in the marketplace is low price and no privacy is the default, and the most crucial players in the commerce is IoT can change that. Amazon, Walmart, Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, anything. Thank you, audience, and thank you, my collaborators. And please feel free to contact me at this email address, as well as I'm available over Twitter, as well as I will be available over Enigma Slack channel as well. Thank you so much for your attention.